This hour is brought to you by Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington. Personal injury, criminal, business, whatever you need, Jeremy Temple Law Office will get you taken care of.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Well, come on along and welcome aboard to Indiana Sports Beat with Corey O'Leary coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals here on this Wednesday, April 15th, tax day. Did they relax that, Todd Leary?
Yeah, like 3 months.
Good. So we don't have to worry about that. It's still, we'll just call it the tax man.
The question makes me laugh that you didn't know that already.
I thought that they did, but I figured they did, but just make it more exciting. Hey, speaking of exciting, got another great program on tap today. Former Indiana coach, football player, basketball player, kind of all everything. Cam Cameron's with us. Looking forward to Coach joining us. Jim Reamer's going to join us. We're going to talk some recruiting as well. Lots of stuff to talk about. There was a volunteer fireman up northern Indiana, Todd, that everybody's looking for their checks now from the government.
Yeah.
$8.4 million was in this dude's account when he went to get it. And he starts calling the bank, and I'm like, calling the bank, heck, I'd have been withdrawing 500 at a time, baby. 500 at a time. Come to Papa.
Yeah. I read that and started thinking the same thing, and then you just know the ramifications of that coming down the road. So
I would claim
it was gone.
Coronavirus crazy or something.
It was gone out of his account before Monday morning.
Yep, it's gone. History. Kyle Larson, we talked about him getting suspended indefinitely yesterday for an incident over the weekend in an iRacing event where he used the N-word. Well, they upped that yesterday. He gone. Bye-bye. Wow. I mean, what is going on with those dudes, man? It's 2 weeks in NASCAR, and those guys are getting over a video game even.
Yeah. First of all, I can't believe that, they are that crazed over, that competitive over the virtual game.
And that shows you the competitive nature of these guys. It's a different level, man. I mean, the week before, the guy got mad because he got wrecked.
That or the immaturity. There's a thin line between your competitive level and you being an immature idiot.
Yeah, and sometimes that line is, I don't know if it's even there.
Yeah,
I agree with you. Huntington, how about Corey Alford, Steve Alford's son, now the head coach at Huntington. So starting his college coaching career.
Really, really similar to his dad's start. I mean, didn't he start at Manchester?
Yeah.
I mean, heck, those schools are not very far apart from each other, and it's just kind of the same path his dad took. And Corey is one I actually have never met. I haven't met him. Most of the family I know, but I have not met Corey. But I mean, you just have to know it's ingrained in him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess didn't he finish up getting to play at UCLA? I know his brother did.
Yeah.
They both did. That was kind of cool. So. Kind of a neat deal, but good to see them. I got an Alfred and not really too far from the roots of Newcastle. I mean, it's like due north of Newcastle right there a little bit, I think, where they are up there. So good luck to them, man, and we'll see how that goes. University of Cincinnati, we talked about how this COVID-19 may affect the NCAA with they had intended on doling out about $600 million, and that was chopped down to like $250. Cincinnati announced that they're canceling soccer, but I also heard that some school people say, hey, anybody that cancels a program right now, they were already looking at canceling that program, and this gave them the excuse to do it. So that's probably the case. But you hate to see a sport like soccer in Cincinnati that has a freaking MLS team.
Yeah.
But you canceled your college team. I don't know if I like that.
There are a lot of schools primarily I would say a bunch of smaller schools that just from a budget standpoint cannot possibly continue with some of those programs. Cincinnati shocks me because anyone that's been involved in youth soccer and traveled to these weekend tournaments, I don't care if you've got a second grader all the way up through anyone in high school and gone through Indiana or Ohio and over into Illinois or even Pennsylvania, and you've seen the amount of kids that are involved in soccer, at that age, and Cincinnati is right in the heart of it. And I'm shocked that a program like that would go away and at a school that size. But I can remember. I remember back when we were in school. I mean, Indiana's soccer team. I mean, they didn't even have a women's soccer team. I don't think it for sure wasn't a sanctioned NCAA sport.
It was probably just either if they did, it was getting started.
Just getting started. Yeah.
I think that program's only like 26, 28 years old.
Is it? Yeah. So I mean, it was right at the infancy stage, but I'm just it's sad from that perspective because Cincinnati's a big school and right in the heart of what I would consider I mean, your daughter plays soccer. You know how big those tournaments get, and it's just crazy.
And Cincinnati's a town, like I said, they've upped themselves, I think, to an MLS team now. They've got professional football, baseball. It's a pro town, man. And
do the Bengals count as a professional football?
No, that's a good point. Not really. They're half. So you got that going for them. But yeah, that was a little surprising because they really seem to have taken to soccer. I know down in Louisville and Indianapolis, both those teams that are I hate to call them minor league teams, but they're just under the MLS. But man, are they popular? Right. I remember taking Kylie to her first game down in Louisville at one of those games, and that really opened my eyes to soccer because I grew up. The time we grew up, at least I was like, yeah, soccer's for sissies, this, that, and the other thing. Boy, oh boy, did I get a real change of attitude when I actually saw these guys play. It was mind-boggling how hard they went, how long they went. It was just nuts, the athletic ability that's out there on display.
No, it's incredible. I mean, you've got to be an incredible athlete and just trained, physically to be able to get. It's like hockey. I mean, you don't think that would be a sport you've got to be in that great a shape, but boy, you do. And all my kids played soccer growing up at a younger age, and it's a good sport for hand-eye coordination and kids to be able to get good footwork. I know you don't use your hands in it, but it's just kind of the I say that for all coordination.
It's probably really just as hard to not use your hands as it is to use them.
And it's good for your footwork. I mean, it helps you. I know a lot. Akeem Olajuwon was a soccer player. That's an example. I mean, he had great footwork in the NBA, and he didn't even play basketball growing up. He played soccer. And so, and then I lived in Europe for a couple of years, and I saw what soccer meant to those people over there, and it changed my opinion of, how popular that sport was, and it's become that in the United States now.
Well, and for those that still don't fall into that category, and talking to like Todd Yeagley, Indiana's coach, he talks about imagine playing an entire sport that you cannot use your hands.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally crazy to think about that because how could they get with what they're doing, the passing, everything they do, there's a rhyme and a reason to everything they're doing, and it's nuts. I mean,
I'll give you my own personal opinion, which I know you're not asking for it, but the only reason why I cannot stand watching soccer is professional soccer is because of all the flopping and faking and all that, throwing yourself on the ground, and
that generally really comes up during the World Cup, and it turns a lot of people off, including me, because you're like, I ain't watching this crap because it's a bunch of crap. It's not. That's not soccer. It's a joke.
It's ridiculous.
Where they should throw those people out.
And you know what? If you get an injury where they have to stop, I would say that you have to come out of the game. I mean, they would eliminate 90% of that stuff that they do.
It's kind of like in college football when you got a team that has a high tempo offense. The defense teaches them just fake it in,
go down. You go out for one play and you come back in.
Now they're changing that rule. If it's deemed that you're faking that injury, there's going to be consequences. We saw college basketball last year, the flop warning. They tried to make that a point of emphasis. Now, will they have to go back and do that again this year because of the shortened season? I don't know, but it was a point of emphasis last year. That flopping, it's crap and it ruins sports. It's not a part of sports.
Well, that's one of the things that I really supported last year from a change standpoint in the NCAA, because I think they were getting out. Guys have been doing that for a long time, but it hasn't gotten totally out of control. The last few years, it started to get out of control, and I like the fact that the NCAA, before it gets ridiculous, put that rule in, and it looked silly and stupid at the beginning, and you got to deal with some, inconsistencies because they truly could call that a lot more than what they even called it this year. But I do like the fact that they're trying to get it out of the game, and because it's awful. I mean, it's so painful to watch. I can't stand it.
Alan Hughes hit us up from on the text line. Bird's Eye. Happy Hump Day. Just a reminder as to what day it actually is. That's kind of handy.
No doubt.
Especially this deep into the week, you get to start thinking, is this Tuesday? Yesterday, I'm like, what is today? It starts to my sleep pattern. Are you able to keep your sleep pattern normal? Mine has been pretty good. The last couple nights I've been suffering, getting it jacked around though.
Yeah, I've actually been fine with that, just because I keep the same routine. Honestly, the show keeps my routine as much as anything, because otherwise, the whole week is just a big blob. I mean, you just don't know. But the show, our show here, kind of breaks it up so you can keep track of the 5 shows at least.
Tim said Arizona State, Bobby Hurley getting 2 good players: a 5-star guard Joshua Christopher, who spurned to Michigan, and Ohio State guard transfer Luther Muhammad. Watch out, Bobby Hurley building him a little deal out there in the desert, man.
What is going on with Michigan?
You know what? That's a great question. You had a guy transfer? You had a guy.
They had 2 guys go into the transfer portal.
Another guy decommitted yesterday.
And another guy decommitted, and 2 guys in the transfer portal. And they were guys that David DeJulius would have started next year. I'm almost positive. And the only reason he didn't start this year was because of Simpson. But that big kid, something Castleton, I can't remember what his first name was, but I mean, he's a big 7-foot kid that, I think he saw the writing on the wall that he's more of a half court style big man. He's not a run up and down. I'm shocked to see those. That's 2 really, really quality players leaving a program of what you would consider. I mean, Juwan Howard looks like a guy that would be a real player's coach, like you would really want to play for. It
just goes to show you. I don't think it matters. I don't think any program is I can't think of the word I'm trying to get out, but this will affect everybody. You look at Matt Harms leaving Matt Painter at Purdue. Never would have thought that. But he thinks that there's greener grass on the other side somewhere.
Yeah,
whatever. I mean, it's just funny. So you got these guys who, I'm going to take my ball and go someplace else because they can now. And then we've got this vote coming up in May, the NCAA, that will allow this one-time transfer. Oh, my gosh. We think it's crazy now.
Right.
Wait till that thing hits. It's going to be like the Old West.
Well, I mean, look at it from the player's perspective. Very few players go to a school not thinking they're going to make, 1, an immediate impact, but 2, not thinking that they're going to work their way into the starting lineup. Let's just be conservative and say after 2 years. So let's take that as an example. If you are, and I know I'm going to hate to say this because he's one of my favorite players, but if you're Race Thompson, do you expect to start next year? I mean, would you and I probably would kind of slate him in the starting lineup, but based on this season, sure doesn't look like it. Joey Brunk started, I think, every game or darn close to every game, and he's back, and that's kind of a similar position. So if you're Race Thompson and you really wanted to have a bigger impact on the team, would you look at transferring? I mean, if you had graduated from school, I think you would definitely look at it.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird. Indiana is one of the few schools that has seen nothing. And there was thoughts that everybody thought Demezy Anderson was going to transfer. I hadn't seen it. And he was probably the only one that I expected of, but that didn't happen. So Indiana, one of the few teams that has been not affected. The Big Ten is going to look very different next year.
Yeah,
and we have no clue what it's going to look like for a while until all this moving and shaking is done.
Yeah, I mean, truly, I think a lot of what it's going to look like has to do with Iowa is one, what Luka Garza decides.
Oh boy, that's big.
It's a big deal. I mean, they'll go from probably easily being the favorite in the league to, possibly being like 6th to 10th. But I mean, you're right. Indiana is a team that hasn't been hit with that yet. And truly, I don't think the time has come and gone. I don't think they're safe from that yet. I still believe that you could still see any of 3 guys transfer from the program. And I hope it doesn't happen. I like the makeup of them right now.
Joining us next, former Indiana football coach Cam Cameron's going to join us here on the program. Can't wait. We're back with that. From the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals. Coyle and Larry back after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make it tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
You're on the line with Jamal Meeks, former Indiana Hoosier, number 23, 1992. And I'm on the beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Larry, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals on this Wednesday. Now joined by one of the most well-known names to ever come out of Indiana, Cam Cameron. Cam, Coach, how are you?
Good morning, man. Doing great. Thank you.
Got Todd Leary here with us, old friend.
Hey, Coach, how are you?
Good, Todd. How about yourself? You doing all right?
I'm doing good. You know, it's so funny because when he said you were going to be on, like, I just always picture you're a basketball player to me. Like, you're a IU basketball player, and I try to flip-flop it over to football so I can speak to football, but I just can't. To me, you're a basketball player, and it's just a weird thing for me. I remember you at IU from basketball, and I know football has been a much bigger part of your life, but I remember watching those state finals and all those games.
Well, as you know, growing up in Indiana, getting to play basketball and being a part of that is special. My dad was a football coach, but you know what, Todd, you're like a lot of Indiana guys. You guys were really, really, really good basketball players. But some of you, guys about your size, you've probably been a nice quarterback too. So that's what happens when you come from Indiana.
Yeah, I was too scared. I was too scared to play
You
football.
said the other day where I was asking you what are some of the sports you played, and you mentioned football, but you didn't say what position you played.
Oh, I was a wide receiver. I got beat out at quarterback, which I don't feel too bad at. I played quarterback in youth football growing up, but then in my freshman year, we had a kid that actually ended up getting a scholarship to play at Western Michigan, and we were the same age growing up. So he beat me out at quarterback, so I had to go out to wide receiver. And about the second pass I caught over the middle, and somebody hit me straight in the mouth is about the time I determined baseball and basketball were going to be my sports.
Well, there have been a lot of guys like that over the years, but you were tough on the basketball court, so that's all that matters.
Coach, what are you doing to fill your time right now? I know it's such a weird time for all of us, having to find different ways to go about life.
Yeah, it's we're out here in San Diego, California, and I've got 4 kids all on college campuses, and my daughter's home from USC, my son's home from West Point, and another one's home from San Diego State. So there's a lot going on here, to be honest with you. It's kind of cool. We're being smart. We're staying inside for the most part. Go out and walk the dogs in the evenings and the early morning, and spend a lot of family time together, and listen to radio shows like this.
Well, yeah, we're certainly trying, but without great people like you, it sure would be a lot more boring to let us talk. That's for
you
sure.
Lost us at San Diego, because right now it's 34 degrees outside here in Bloomington, and so as soon as you said San Diego, I blanked out.
Well, my wife Missy's from Bloomington. I'm from Terre Haute, and I was back not too long ago. I was back to the combine actually, and we got a chance to come by Bloomington as well. So yeah, we're still tied to Indiana. We love Indiana, but we knew once I coached for the Chargers, a buddy of mine told me, he said, "Don't coach for the Chargers." I said, "Well, why is that?" He goes, "A trap." I said, "What do you mean it's a trap?" So yeah, your family's always going to want to stay there. And boy, were they right. We built a home here in 2000, and we've been coming back off and on ever since.
Yeah, even Todd's favorite TV basketball analyst, Bill Walton, moved down to San Diego. That's where his home is, I believe, as well.
That would be enough to get me to move out of town.
Yeah, he's a beauty now. I tell you what, he's no Don Fisher. And, you know what, Todd? You bring up some great memories. And you talking about you watching me play. Well, I got a chance to watch the 76 teams and those guys play. But the highlight for me as a kid growing up in Indiana was listening to the Don Fisher. I know he's a good friend of yours, and listen to the Don Fisher broadcasts. And we used to run around imitating Don Fisher as a kid, and it was no one like Don Fisher. I know you guys agree.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, he's. I try to imitate him. I'm so bad at imitating.
Everybody is. Nobody can imitate him. I mean, it is like
I got a couple buddies that are really, really.
Okay,
good.
you ready? You ready for it?
Let's have it. Yeah.
All right, here it comes. Ready?
You have to say
Benson now, jumping up and down, throwing his hands in the air. As this Hoosier Ball Club goes wild, they realize they won the national championship.
Beautiful.
Yep, you're better than most.
That's one of the best I've ever heard. That's beautiful. I can't believe we had to get Cameron on here to do the best Don Fisher impersonation. That's amazing, but that was pretty good.
I haven't done that in years, but that brought back some good memories.
Hey, talk about when I was in high school, the football and basketball, they tried to keep them separate because of the sports, and in college it's even more difficult. But you're one of the few guys that was able to pull that off, the double playing football for Indiana and then basketball for Bob Knight.
Well, I say this pretty seriously. I really practiced more than I played, but it was a unique opportunity for me. Coming from having a really cool high school career and being on some great teams at Terre Haute South. I think we won. I mean, we won I don't know how many games we won. We won a bunch of games, and I was always hooked on basketball. But my dad was a coach, and I was a quarterback. So I came to IU to play football, and I just never lost the passion to play basketball. And I said to Coach Knight when Rick Rory had gotten injured, I think it was 1983, I told him, no one even needs a coach. No one even needs to know I'm on the team. I'll just practice and whatever I can do to help. And next thing you know, that Thursday night, I was in Rupp Arena playing against Kentucky. So you try to figure stuff out. And and sometimes there's just a bigger plan there for you. So I was just very, very fortunate to be able to do both. And obviously knowing I wanted to be a coach, that was a nice fit for me.
Who coached the football team? Who recruited you at IU?
Actually, Lee Corso was the head
That's
coach.
What I thought.
And
I thought I remembered that.
A guy named Bill Dobe. I played 1 year for Sam White my senior year, which was really a phenomenal year for me as a player. And then I tore my ACL. But no, Coach Corso. People think he's just a funny guy. That guy knew some football, and we won the Holiday Bowl my freshman year, and IU's first bowl win. So being a part of a bowl winning team and a Big Ten championship team in basketball was really two of my highlights, other personally. But then as the relationships with these coaches and players are the things that you carry with you. So I'll always remember him and Coach Cruz and all the guys in basketball, and Coach Knight, obviously. So
I mean, you are literally
a lot of great memories.
You are literally the only person in the world that can say that they have played for Lee Corso and Bob Knight
and Sam White.
But Lee Corso, like just the stories you could tell. We could have you on here for 5 hours just telling Lee Corso and Bob Knight stories, because those are two just animated, crazy nuts that. I mean, just so many different things. I thought I remembered it was Lee Corso. I was hoping it was, but
no, you're right.
That's awesome.
And they were completely different. But I'll say this: I went in. I was a little nervous when I went into Coach Corso to say that I've got an opportunity to play basketball, and I'd really like to do that. And he said, I think that is a great idea. He goes, you want to be a coach someday? I'll never forget him saying, he goes, what better coach to learn from? And he was right. I learned a lot. Really, and I don't know how it was with you, Todd. I'm not sure who all the assistants were when you were there, but I learned so much from Joby Wright and Jim Cruz and Royce Waltman and Con Smith. I mean, the assistants were a huge key, at least during my time there. And Coach Knight obviously is who he is, but he did a phenomenal job with the assistants, at least the ones I played for. So that was a huge part. We got to know those guys probably a lot better than we got to know him.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. Dockich, and the funny part, you said Joby Wright, because Joby was there still when I played. He was there for, I think, 1 year, maybe two, but Joby and Dockich and Felling were really the key assistant coaches for me back then. And you're right. We spent so much more time with those guys than we did Coach Knight. It wasn't even funny. But yeah, that's the Dockich of those days is different than the Dockich of today. And I love him. I love both Dockiches, but he was a big part of so many players from my era's development, because he worked with the big guys, the guards. He worked with everybody, and it was just he was a huge factor. I know you mentioned those coaching relationships, and that was a big deal for us back then. Yeah.
One thing I'd say about Dan. And I, you come back to Indiana and you live across the country, and people say, yeah, Dockich is too controversial. I don't listen to his radio show, but I'll say this about him. He was a great teammate, and our lockers were next to each other, and he had tremendous respect within our locker room. When he didn't play scared. I think that's probably why he was the one chosen to guard Michael Jordan. Now, he had a lot of help, as we know. That help side defense was pretty good in that game, but Doc was phenomenal teammate, phenomenal guy to be around. And then as a coach, we communicated quite a bit as a coach. But what I have seen over the years, and I'm not being critical of you guys, but I say some guys, when they jump into that media, it's like, where did that other guy go? And maybe that's what you're alluding to. So, people want controversy and things like that, but my experience with Dan was phenomenal.
Yeah, he's always been a great friend of us. He's always
he's always been good to us. And Danny, we just have a kind of a special relationship, I think, just because he was that important to me as a player when I was there. And I know Calbert and some of the other guys. I mean, Dan's the guy that we dealt with, and I don't think a lot of Indiana fans, I mean, they don't want to hear anything negative about the program, and that's fine. I'm okay with that too. But Danny's just fine with saying how things are, and he's never going to sugarcoat it, and he's going to say his opinion. Doesn't mean his opinion's always right, but he's going to say it. And you're right. I'm not turning into the Dan Dockich Love Show, but I love Danny.
Right.
He's a good dude to me.
No, I can see that. I think what you're alluding to in my mind is those assistant coaches were the most phenomenal translators that I've ever been around, because Coach Knight would get after you pretty good. Sometimes it was a little complex, because of the way he viewed the game of basketball. And so the assistants had to translate to us, because Coach said, because it'd be hard to take some of the stuff he'd say to you, but all of a sudden Joby'd come over and say, now here's what he's saying. Don't get into all the other, just see this part of it. And I thought that was huge. Especially with Ted and Randy, Steve. I mean, all the guys all those names you guys know what I'm talking about. They did a phenomenal job of just translating what Coach Knight really wanted to get done, and that was big.
It sounds like you've been able to absorb so much from so many different coaches and move, and especially even on the basketball side. It's like it doesn't even matter what sport it is, and then take that to what you've did, because you've had an unbelievable coaching career, coaching at only the top destinations in the country, whether it's Michigan or the Redskins or Baltimore, wherever, or the Dolphins or San Diego. It's just amazing how you've just compiled all of this coaching knowledge.
Well, Jim, that's nice of you, but I've just been the way I view things is really pretty simple. I think if good people work together, good things are going to happen. So I've just always tried to surround myself with good people, and then try to work as hard as I can with those people, and then you got to get good players. I mean, you have to do a phenomenal job of evaluating players, especially mentally. Coach always said, mental is the physical as 4 is to 1. And that is so true. And that's true. You look at the IQ of basketball players today. There are no dummies playing great basketball anymore. The high IQ guys, the NBA IQs have gone way up. Just look at Steph Curry. I mean, Larry had it way back. I grew up playing with Larry when he was at Indiana State. And I think in my mind, he and Magic were two of the first just really high IQ guys, other than probably those 76, 75, 4, Coach Knight's early teams. But that basketball IQ is so important. And we as coaches, everywhere else I've been, we've always valued the brain, and the mental side of the game. And that tends under pressure to help you and help you win big games.
Todd, you say that. I don't know how many times I've heard you say that on here. The mental.
If you knew how many times I had to write down the mental is to physical as 4 is to 1, you would know why I repeat it all the time. But I've said it. I'll tell you, 3 people in the world that throw up every time they hear that are my 3 kids, because I have said that to them so many times about stupid things that they've said and done, and it's I've got it written on the wall just like we had in our locker room there, Cam.
Yeah. No doubt. Well, as you know, you just hope it sinks in a little bit, and they'll grab hold of it. So don't give in. It's important. My guys, like I say, they're back home now, and they're hearing some of the same stuff they heard when they left to go off to college. So, and they kind of smile at it now. So it'll come back to be a huge positive for you.
Will any of your kids get into coaching?
I've got one. My second son, Danny, who played 3 years at IU, then transferred to New Mexico to finish up his career. And he's coaching now. He's an intern at Michigan. So he's the awesome one that I tried to talk out of it. And the more I tried to talk him out of it, he decided that he wanted to get into it. So he's up there working with Jim Harbaugh and that staff, and really, really enjoy. He's kind of got the coaching bug. My other kids are sports minded, but they kind of got their own thing. I don't think he'll probably be my only coach.
Speaking of Jim Harbaugh, I text in the show from Tim. How was it to coach Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah, it was phenomenal. He when I got there, he was kind of under the radar. Of course, going back 100 years, it was. I remember getting in my Camaro, beat up Camaro, and drove to Michigan as a graduate assistant. And went in there as a graduate assistant. And Jim was a redshirt sophomore, and I'd never heard of him, and neither did anybody else. And all of a sudden, he kind of came on the scene. One of the hardest workers I've ever been around. I know that doesn't surprise anybody. He just willed himself to become an All-American, a first-round draft pick. Heck, when his first-round draft pick quarterback for the Bears, and his rookie year, he ran down the kickoff team. So he just loves the game of football. And was a phenomenal. Taught me a lot. I think I know, Todd, you do some coaching now. Your players, doesn't matter how old they are, it could be youth coaches, high school, college, NFL. Your coaches, if you'll pay attention, your players as a coach can teach you a lot. And Jim taught me a lot about how to teach and what worked, what didn't work. And then he went on to have a great career. And, we still stay in contact pretty regularly to this day.
So he was Taysom Hill before Taysom Hill.
You know what? He'd love for you to say that. I'm going to be honest with you. He'd love you. I'd say the mindset and probably the throwing part. And he was a little bit of a scrambler. But Taysom Hill now, that cat is spectacular. He's a big version of Antoine Randall L. Is kind of how I would view him.
That's a good point.
They do some freakish. He can do some freakish stuff.
That's fun. You keep leading me right into my next question. That's 2 in a row because I just wrote down Antoine Randall L., one of the, if not the greatest athlete or one of the greatest athletes in the history of Indiana University. You obviously had a great fortune of coaching him as well. That had to be a special time.
Well, it was. And the first part is Coach Knight helped me recruit him, and I'm not sure we get him if Coach Knight, and obviously his brother Curtis was playing for us, but I'm not sure we get him if Coach Knight doesn't step in and help. But no, and are you guys aware of what he's doing now? That sucker, I tried to talk him out of coaching too, but he's a wide receiver coach now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So he and his family are doing great. And he probably I'd say top 5, just because you got to put Drew Brees, even though he's a Purdue guy, you got to put some other guys in there, Phillip Rivers, those kind. But I'd say Antoine may be the smartest football player that I ever coached, or one of them. And he could come off the field and tell you what all 11 defenders were doing. And that's really unique. That's really unique.
You also just mentioned Phillip Rivers, now coming to the Colts with a long time there in San Diego. But now he'll be playing with the Colts, of course. So big moves for them.
Yeah. Hey, you guys will love this one now. So we draft Phillip out of North Carolina State when Eli didn't want to come to the Chargers. But we fell in love with Phillip at the Senior Bowl. But somebody called me. Who was it? Somebody from back home said Phillip was coming to Indianapolis, which I kind of knew. I knew that was going to happen. And I said, well, here's what you're getting with Phillip Rivers. And you're getting a combination of Larry Bird and Peyton Manning. And that may sound funny to you guys, but it's true. He's got that competitiveness that Larry had. He's got, Larry had a little bit of a funky shot. Everybody was, will that translate to the NBA? Well, we all know how that ended up. Phillip's got a little funky release. He's as clean cut as they come. He's as hard a worker as you're ever going to find. To think that the Colts could have Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, and Phillip Rivers, most Miami Dolphins just would take a third of any of that. And the Colts are so fortunate. But you guys got a great one now. You guys, I think hopefully everybody knows that up there. He's phenomenal.
I think they do, but of course, you're never going to please everybody. But looking forward to what that season brings, and hopefully, when the season comes around, for all these seasons that we're waiting on, whether it's football, soccer, or whatever. But Coach, I cannot thank you for taking the time to join. It's been one of the best times I think we've ever had on the show, and I can't thank you. I hope we get a chance to do this again. This has been one of the funnest times I've had.
Well, it's awfully nice of you. I know there's a lot of people struggling out there, and a show like this and I did my homework. People enjoy your show. They love the life of your show, and keep it going, man. And feel free to call me anytime.
We appreciate it. Thanks, Coach.
Coach, we appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great time out in San Diego and stay safe.
You got it. Same to you and everybody listening.
Thank you so much. Cam Cameron, former Hoosier great, joining us here on the program. Jim Reamer is going to join us a little later on. We got some recruiting news to talk about. What an incredible time that was, Ty. That was no joke. That's probably the best segment that we've ever done here.
Well, I mean, he is – some people are – and he had a knee injury. Maybe his pro career would have been a lot different if he didn't have that. But some people are just kind of born to coach. Some people are born to play. I really think Cam Cameron figured out early enough on that he was born to coach, and just listening to him, you can tell that's what he was born to do.
Well, he just like Bob Knight, he was one of the most prolific offensive coordinators,
right?
One of the most prolific because of that attention to detail, I think, that he learned there. But lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat coming from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals. We're back with more right after this. everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Hey, this is Jordan Halls, former Indiana Hoosier. Keep up with Indiana sports on Indiana Sports Beat.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals here on this Wednesday, April 15th. But don't stress it. You got 3 months to file your taxes. Just finished up with Coach Cam Cameron, former Hoosier great, man. That was incredibly fun.
Yeah, I'm telling you, he's just class. I've met him, numerous times, and every time. The funniest part is that I was waiting for him to say, he mentioned Coach Knight's mental's physicals 4-1. Coach Knight's other thing was always prepare. What is it? I can't remember what it is. Be prepared.
If you're not preparing to fail, you're failing.
Failing prepares, preparing to fail. And you can tell he prepares for everything. He had already looked up our show and looked up us and things like that.
You know how deep this goes. I've learned this stuff now. For me, it just keeps on going. Now, if you think about Cam Cameron, how long he's coached in all these places, whether it's Michigan or Arizona or at the NFL level. Do you know how many? Can only guess how many times he's probably said that to players. Yeah. I mean, it just keeps going. It's amazing how that just keeps reaching out.
It's the truth. I mean, it's funny because Coach Knight, you don't just walk in there, day one, and all of a sudden he throws all these quotes at you and you understand what he's talking about. I mean, it takes some people longer than others, but it takes, sometimes a couple of months, a couple of years for that stuff to kind of click and make sense. And, when he first, I swear to you, I've shown you those red books that I have. We used to always have to keep notes all year long of those red books. And I went back and looked at my freshman year, and I wrote down a bunch of these quotes. And I can assure you, when I wrote them down, I was just like, what'd he say? Like, what's the quote? And I wrote it down, and it went in one ear and out the other. And it just, it's not until later on that you start to resonate. It's not until you go play against, a guy with my stature goes and plays against a guy like Jalen Rose, and I can compete with him in a game. A guy like me plays against Steve Smith, and I can compete in a game like that. And it's because of the things that Coach, instills in you.
And I think that's what fans have to understand, Hoosier fans specifically today. You can't just have talent. I mean, any talent. I mean, and any coach. I'm not talking about any coaches in particular, except for Knight. I'm talking about him in particular. Sure. He could do that because of what he was able to do from that standpoint, that mental standpoint. When you have a guy who's had the success that Cam Cameron has, and so much of what he did is based on that. That tells you enough right there, which not that we didn't already know that, but again, it keeps solidifying what those points are.
Yeah, the hard thing, this is what you have to admire. Once you get to my age and you get older and you look at a guy like Cam Cameron, you look at a guy, Archie Miller falls into this category of guys who recognize early enough on that their career is going to be in leading other people and coaching. And they start to look at things differently, and they start to play themselves differently. You heard Cam Cameron say it. I mean, he had a conversation with Lee Corso during his playing days, and Lee Corso already knew that Cam wanted to be a coach. So it was something that Cam had identified early on in his playing career, and most guys are not able to do that. I was one of the players that was not able to do that. Like I always thought I was going to continue to play forever, and I'd retire from the NBA. And have enough money, I'd just play golf every day and not have to worry about anything. And I never was mature enough to kind of step back and realize the path might not be in playing for me. It might have been in coaching. And I think a lot of players fall into that category. It's funny when we had Deron Davis on here and you asked him something about coaching, and his immediate reaction was, no, I never want to get involved in coaching. No. Yeah. And you know what? He still in his mind has it that his playing days are not over yet. And I'm not blaming him. I fell in that exact same category. And so it's just a matter of, some guys don't realize it as early as others. And Cam is one of those very mature. He was probably mature as a kid early on. And his parents would probably tell you he was a mature kid growing up.
Well, when he was in college and when you play any sport, I don't care, and especially a major sport, football, basketball, those take up almost all your time, and you add school into that. Now to add a second sport to that in college, I don't know if people realize how insane that actually is, because your responsibilities for football don't end. The ones for basketball are just added to it.
Well, and there were guys, back then, you take the Larry Birds of the world, that were kind of the early editions of Tom Brady, a guy who thinks his way through the game just as much as he physically plays through the game. And there were a lot fewer guys back then that did that than there are now. Now it would be much more difficult for Cam Cameron to play football and basketball at IU because there are so many more people, preparing. There are so many more people that are, ahead of the curve than there were back in that time. And I just physically, I don't know that it's even hardly possible to do it anymore. I was chuckling when you said it almost takes all of your time. No, it does take up all of your time. There is no question about it.
Well, the one thing for Cam, you could tell, he wasn't going there with any delusions of playing. As a matter of quite the opposite, was going there simply to help out, but to probably absorb from Bob Knight.
Yeah, I mean, and that is, like, I don't know if people understand. I mean, I've got kids that are in the same exact age range of what Cam Cameron was when he just made that statement to us about wanting to be a part of the basketball program because he could learn from Coach Knight, and they already knew he wanted to get into coaching. I mean, if my kids could see, into the distant future like that and try to be preparing for that into the future, I mean, it would blow me away right now. And to think that Cam was doing that, 40 years ago is incredible to think about. But yeah, he mentioned it, and you can tell anyone that goes into Coach Knight's system and is there to literally be a sponge and learn everything, because there is so much to learn. It's unbelievable. And I will tell you, every one of these kids, I don't care who they are, every one of these kids, from Trey Galloway, who's one of the nicest kids in the world, and Anthony Leal, who's one of the nicest kids in the world, they don't have any idea how much they still have to learn. And I can tell you, as a freshman going into IU, I already thought I knew everything when it comes to basketball. And these guys think the same thing, and it's just human nature, and they will learn pretty quickly, how much more there is to take in and learn and develop.
Tim hit a text line up. He's going to get some lunch. Unfortunately, not for us, but from Bubba's 33 down there in Clarksville. He asked me if I'm jealous. I'm like, yeah, I'm jealous. That's some incredible food. That's a great time to get out and do that on this Wednesday, whether it's Yogi's or Bubba's 33. Help out the folks around you. But yeah, another subject, Dr. Fossey, our famous Dr. Fossey now, who is the COVID-19 expert, says the only way to expect to see pro sports this summer is fanless, is to return fanless. He is the top infectious disease expert, one of the faces of the United States fight against this virus, of course. But he says there's a way of doing that. Nobody comes to the stadium, put players in big hotels, wherever you want to keep them. And maybe they start out in one location. I mean, they're going to have to make so many changes for sports to return. Now, and I know the sports aren't the most important thing in the world, but they kind of are, because especially now with everybody being cooped up, the mental part of this becomes very real, and sports are a freaking release for people, whether the ones that don't like it or they want to admit it or not, it is. And you're not going to change that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I was in the crowd when he made that statement, my question would have been back to him when he uses the statement of summer. Like, when is that? Is that June and July? Is that June, July, August? Does that go all the way into September? Like that, because that changes things. I mean, if you're allowed to start doing things in August, I think we can make do with that. And I think everyone would probably accept that going forward right now. And also, is he talking about indoor sports, or is he including outdoor sports? It's just, there's a lot of questions that go into that. But I think he's trying to kind of set a mind, get people in a mindset of what to think about, and not get their expectation levels, too high and thinking it's going to come back sooner.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing, that being cooped up like this, everyone's waiting for that. It's like you're at the starting line and they're just waiting for that bell to go off. That's not how it's going to happen. It's going to be a slow trickle out, and that's the thing that scares me for those people that are not.
Well, I mean, okay, let's just say, for example, they lifted the stay-at-home ban, tomorrow.
I ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, not the vast majority of people are all of a sudden going to rush out. Even though I want to go out and eat at restaurants and things like that, I'm probably still not going to do it for a while.
That's the first thing I'm thinking of, too. That's the first thing I'm like, well, I'd like to go eat somewhere. I like to eat somewhere besides here.
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I'm
an okay cook, but I'm tired of Shea Jim.
But I'm probably not gonna rush out, and if they lift the ban at midnight tonight, tomorrow at noon, I'm going to be out sitting in a restaurant eating. I mean, I just don't think. I think most people are going to be a little bit cautious when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I think that we also, like, I have a daughter, you have kids, but she's not with me, and so there's people that have 4 kids in a house. I don't know what that's like right now. I can imagine, but I'm not in that situation. So, I feel sorry for those people, but I do, because I can imagine. Like I said, I can imagine what that's like. But and some of it could be fun. You just had Coach Cameron talk about that. He's got his kids out, some of his kids out there, so that would not be happening. Some people are getting to enjoy moments that would absolutely never be happening, and it's actually pretty incredible.
No, you can flip some positives out of this for sure, especially from a family perspective. But it would be some people love tiny children and babies and things like that. I mean, some people, it would be a lot easier for me if my kids were 17, 21, and 22 the way they are, where we can go out and play basketball and hang out. Changing diapers all day and feeding people would be a little bit more stressful. I would definitely agree. But, you can just there are things going on with this that, one, it's never happened in our lifetimes, and hopefully, two, doesn't ever happen again. And so to take advantage of these opportunities where, most people are not getting to get up and go to work every day. They're getting to stay home and work with their kids in school and things like that. And this is definitely a time to take advantage of those things, and instead of, looking at it from a negative perspective, like we're all cooped up.
You talked about not rushing out. There was a poll that says, and 72% of Americans polled by Seton Hall Stillman School of Business said they would not attend if sporting events resumed without a vaccine for the coronavirus. Just 13% of Americans said they would feel comfortable. I can see that. Hey, we got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat. Jim Rimmer's going to join us. We're going to talk about some recruiting today. So, man, we got all kinds of stuff to fill in this show today. It's been another good one. We'll be back with all that and more as we're coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals, right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour watching the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Drs. Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Hey, it's Michael Lewis, former Indiana University player and current UCLA assistant basketball coach, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Coyle Leary coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals here on this Wednesday. Joined now by Jim Reamer. Jim, how are you, sir?
Doing fine, Jim. Thanks for having me back on.
You betcha, man. Lots going on in the recruiting world. Indiana, of course, got a commitment from Logan Duncombe. But 2020 class kind of full. Not a lot of talk of Christian Lander. He's looking to reclassify. Of course, a lot of stuff going on right now. May or may not make that more difficult. I don't know. But no word that's going to happen. So I think going forward, people are going to assume that 2020 class for Indiana right now is full.
Yeah, I've heard nothing that would change Lander's disposition on reclassifying and being part of 2020. And it's the way he shoots the ball. Obviously, that's a premium, and that's something that any school would need. But that's certainly something we talked about that last week. Indiana's got to be trying to hoard as many shot makers as they can get right now. So he would be a welcome addition. At least a push for minutes and maybe even get on the court and play with Fennessy if he's still going to be the point guard.
And of course, we already know the class coming in: Leo Galloway, Geronimo, and probably Lander. And then looking forward, they got the commitment from Duncombe, and of course, one of the top targets, Trey Kaufman from Silver Creek down in southern Indiana, a big guy who likes to stand out on the wing and shoot the ball, but he's one of Indiana's top targets right now.
He is. I mean, he certainly does more than stand on the wing and shoot the ball. He's extremely versatile, and the fact that he is 6'8" and has 3-point range, and it's legitimate. I mean, I don't know that the extra distance for college would cause him an issue, but that versatility just makes him attractive, and I think teams are looking at how much more development his body has to go physically, maybe even athletically. And as his feet improve and as his athleticism improves, it's just going to make his skill set even better.
A lot of people have talked about, like when Duncombe committed, that may or may not affect what Kaufman's doing. And I don't really see that because they don't really play the same position. They're kind of different. They actually complement each other and have played with each other, both coming out of that Indiana Elite program.
Right. You'd think that would be the case. I don't know. There was something going around right after Duncombe committed that suggested that maybe now Kaufman might be looking a different direction. I don't see the connection in that. I certainly don't think it has anything to do with Duncombe. So maybe bad timing on that little bit of information. But yeah, there's no question they could play together, and there's no question that even like Race Thompson, if you're looking that far ahead, or maybe for whatever reason Trace Jackson Davis decides that he doesn't leave after his sophomore year. Both those guys, Duncombe and Kaufman, could play alongside Trace and play alongside Race. So that's the diversity of skill set, or the diversity of positions that those guys can play is definitely a nice feature they both bring. Duncombe will bring to the program, and that Kaufman could bring to the program.
Hey, you talk about shooters, of course. Blake Wesley, a kid up north in South Bend, one of the best shooters in the state of Indiana, also on Indiana's radar.
Yeah, he's good. I mean, we talked about him before as well. He's just superior athleticism, superior length. He gets to the rim, gets downhill, and is able to make plays and do so efficiently. He's not out of control, and certainly not out of control when you can't just absolutely key on him. I know, this year at Riley, he's obviously the top guy in the scouting report. It's in bold print. It's probably circled. It's probably underlined. It's probably got arrows pointed at him. It's like you've got to stop him. And there's times where guys like that, or guys in that situation, will have to force plays or make plays. No different than, let's say, at the college or NBA level, where you've got a guy who will take an extra 3 or 4 shots a game at the end of a shot clock because that's his role. He's a go-to guy. On an AAU situation or college, you're not going to be able to just solely focus on a kid like that. And as his shot continues to improve, he's already a good shooter. And as it continues to improve, again, that's going to accentuate his athleticism. So it's almost the flip of Kaufman.
And as we move forward, we're going through this weird COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected everything, obviously, and there's no AAU this summer. But as we look forward, the 2021 and 2022 classes, both kind of affected there because guys are not getting seen as much. But there are still a lot of guys, especially the 2021 class in Indiana, is being thought of as one of the best in a long, long time.
Very deep, and pretty top-heavy. I don't know that there's any – you don't look at that class and think there's just some definite can't-miss pros. Like, I don't know if there's anybody in that class that's as good as Trace Jackson Davis. I don't know if there's anybody in this class that's as good as, say, what Trey Lyles would have been in 2014. But there's a lot of guys that are going to play their way into high major situations. There's going to be a lot of guys that are really good mid-major kids that, you'll see that, we'll see mid-majors in Indiana do well or in the Midwest do well, and they'll probably have some of the kids on this team or some of the kids from this class from Indiana be on it. But, the recruiting process for Kaufman and Wesley probably won't be as impacted greatly on their opportunities. It may impair their decision-making just because of things like visits and how they build relationships. But the other guys, the borderline guys, those are the guys right now that are going to be mostly impacted by not having this spring. And hopefully we're able to get back on the court. May might be pushing it, but hopefully by July there'll be some opportunities to play and maybe even bleed a little bit into August for those kids to get opportunities. And it goes beyond just being seen by Division I coaches. It goes seen by media people, by lower level coaches, and those guys have friends who are at the D1 level. And trust me, those guys do report back in those situations. And then guys that make it their hobby or their business out of scouting kids like that. And those are the guys that'll be able to see them, even if the season extends beyond what the NCAA calendar lets their coaches come out and watch.
Who are some of the kids in that 2021 class that we haven't talked about that could or should be on Indiana's radar?
Oh, I mean, I think it's been picked over by this point. I mean, it's, Blake Sisley is a kid out of Heritage Hills who's, a lot of guys in that area probably comparing him a little bit to Jack Nunge, who's at Iowa. The problem there is Nunge's probably 2 or 3 inches taller. DJ Hughes out of Lawrence North is a kid who's at 6'7". His game is developing beyond being what he was when he was younger, which is a pure post player. Got the athleticism, got a really good body. The progression in his game has been impressive, and he would be more comparable to maybe a lesser. I mean, he's very athletic, so when I say this, we're picking nits. Maybe not as explosive as Josh Smith for Indiana, or Justin Smith. Sorry, definitely not as explosive as Josh Smith from back in 2000. But Justin Smith, not as explosive as Justin Smith, but skill set wise, kind of comparable. And maybe I'm not sure how they would compare size wise. A kid I like more than most. Not that they don't like him, but it's Cooper Jacoby, which is Trey Kaufman's teammate at Silver Creek. I mean, he's already got mid-major offers, and he's a kid that, he absolutely saved their bacon against Fort Wayne Blackhawk when they played each other in December. And, he's a kid who right now the knock on him, at least at the high major level, would be how well does he shoot the ball. And then,
I was at me and Todd were both at that game at Southport last year, and I thought it's funny you say that because I thought the same thing. The dude, he shot, he hustled, he was you could tell he was the stir that was stirring the drink on that team, at least in that game. And I'm a bit surprised that he hasn't gotten a little more attention.
Well, shooting's a premium, and sometimes it's tough when you look at that, and his shot's got a little bit of a hitch in it. And sometimes, I remember going back a long time ago where Ron Felling wasn't sure Luke Rucker would make it in the Big Ten because Luke had a hitch in his shot. So that's how nitpicky sometimes guys can be when it comes to evaluating a shooting mechanics. And when you look at him, and sometimes too, they wonder, well, he's the second best player on does he get knocked down a little bit because Silver Creek's 3A? I mean, believe me, both those guys a lot of us have known both those guys were Division I talents for a while. The question was going to be, how much more would they mature physically? Kaufman certainly had the genes to do that, and he's lived. He's progressed as people have thought. And for Jacoby, it's just been about just continually developing his skill. And one of their coaches in their youth program was a guy that kind of talked to me about him, and when he was in middle school, and said that this was going to definitely be a kid. He was probably in middle school their third best prospect or their third best player. But this guy thought that he could be, if not Trey, then Cooper Jacoby would be the top prospect to come out of that group. Now Trey has certainly developed, like I said, physically, but no, I love him. He's a guy that I don't know if anybody, for those who didn't see that game, first was owning Kaufman, just completely owning him. Now Kaufman had some foul issues, but part of that was him guarding first, and then Jacoby came in. When Kaufman went out, Jacoby moved over to guard first, and Jacoby pretty much shut first down until the very end of the game when first got some kind of empty calorie points when the game was kind of decided. But I was really impressed with how well he defended first, which Kaufman struggled to do. And then in the second half, Kaufman got going offensively, and those two together were too much for Blackhawk to handle. And Silver Creek ended up winning the game actually relatively, maybe not easily, but certainly I think the score wouldn't have indicated how much they struggled throughout the game.
And I know there's some guys in the 2022 class that are starting to emerge. But again, this summer that's gonna hurt them as well. How much does that hurt those guys' development?
Well, the top one is really going to hurt, and I don't know what his health situation is just yet. Jalen Washington, 6'8", 6'9" forward from Gary West. He's a kid he's probably similar to Kaufman, except I think people saw it a little sooner than what Trey did. I mean, Trey's really developed his body, and meanwhile, Jalen Washington has always been this lean, long, and angular player, and the question for him is just getting stronger. And he tore his ACL at the beginning of the school season and hasn't played since. Now, no real timetable, not that you get a lot of that information in high school, but no real timetable on when his return would be. So not playing the spring may be more of a health thing for him than this COVID, the COVID shutdowns. But he's definitely going to be a kid that, if he wants to get the recruiting that people think he's capable of having, the options he's capable of having, he's going to need to get back on the court. The other one is Reggie Bass, who has, I'm going to have to look up the name. I'm going to get it mixed up. Hamilton Heights Christian Academy. He's from Muncie Central, or he would have gone to Muncie Central had he stayed in Indiana. And that's the other definite kid that we all kind of think is definite high major in this class. And there's some other kids that we'll certainly talk about here before we get off the air today. But Jalen Washington, Reggie Bass are both pretty clear high majors, and both have the offers to match it.
And those guys are just now becoming more known to the fan base, I guess. But they've been known under the radar to those that follow that circuit as they begin to emerge. But that's been slowed, as we mentioned, because of this COVID-19. And I wonder how much we see it affecting colleges, and it's affecting programs. And then we wonder how much recruiting is going to be affected. And there's a nonstop domino effect of the effects of sports right down to the recruiting aspect.
Well, I think we'll see more guys probably commit in the spring this year than the fall. And it obviously won't change the number of available scholarships, because that's still a finite resource. And there's still going to be, especially these 2021 kids, these are kids that have still been seen quite a bit. It's not like they've not been seen. But what's going to happen is you're going to see those in-between kids like a Sisley, who is definitely getting mid-majors, like Cooper Jacoby, who's definitely getting mid-majors. And guys like that who we're looking forward to the spring to play into maybe bigger offers or bigger offers with better fits. And that's the opportunity you're going to see go away. So what might happen is if, depending on where they feel their recruiting situation is, they could decide to not commit in the fall. And so that will impact mid-majors, keep them recruiting other kids, because now there's more uncertainty on the prospects they were, leaning pretty heavily on to get in the fall. And so it will definitely be a ripple effect, but I don't know that it affects like high major blue chip programs. I mean, I know we all here in Indiana still think Indiana, Purdue, Butler, I think those guys are going to be fine. Notre Dame, they're going to be fine. They've targeted their guys. They're going to continue to recruit those guys. If they have a lot of scholarships to give in a class, which I'm going to look here real quick to make sure I get it right. Indiana's got really only 2 open spots left for 2021. They'll have 3 if Lander does reclassify to 2020. I don't know that they'll be impacted that much by this, other than just how comfortable they are with bringing prospects onto campus and convincing them that Indiana's the place to be. It's those borderline guys that will have the biggest impact, and those borderline and the schools who are recruiting those kids, the mid majors that are recruiting those kids will have the toughest struggle to get those kids to commit in the fall.
And I agree with you. I think that commitments may come sooner rather than later. And then that begs the question, is Trey Kaufman one of those guys with those 2 available in 2021? Because I think that there's been so much talk, and nothing that I think is based on any inside knowledge of talking to him, but just I personally think he ends up at Indiana. Because of the relationships he has with the guys that have gone there in front of him from his Indiana elite team. I think Indiana is trending in that right direction from a recruiting wise, but that's just my opinion. Again, that's not based on a conversation with Trey Kaufman.
Well, there's definitely logic behind that. And I don't know what his disposition was on a timetable, whether or not he was going to see the process through or whether or not he was looking to wrap it up sometime this summer. And a lot of kids like to get it done with so they can just enjoy their last month. They say it, their last month of AAU or whatever it is. Especially now with June being open to Division I coaches, the final 2 weekends of the month, you get extra opportunities to be seen. And there's a great event up here at Carmel and North Central and Hamilton Southeastern called the Charlie Hughes Invitational, where vast majority of the top teams in the state, vast majority of the top kids in the state get a chance to play. And last year that was fun with college coaches being able to watch it and those kids really competing. It's almost becomes like a major AAU event. And June has since become the last decade or so with the new ITSA rules of being almost like a second season or a mini season as high school teams prepare for next year. But yeah, I don't know what Kaufman's timetable is, if it's been impacted. But I never fault a kid who wants to play the process out, because they all deserve to get as much information as they can. And very few of these kids get a chance to control the process. And I think Kaufman's getting to a point in his recruiting where he has a little bit of say and control on when decisions get made.
I agree with it, Jim. Jim Reamer joining us from courtside Indiana. Make sure you follow him there. Give him a side on some high school scouting, which is all importance right now as everybody looking to find out who's going where. A lot of movement on the transfer portal too. How much do you think the transfer portal action is affecting the recruiting, its overall recruiting?
Well, I'm going through now with one of our former players as a kid that's transferring out of University of Indianapolis, and he's gotten offers got an offer from Xavier late last week, got an offer last night from Nebraska, and he's got a lot of schools that are still talking to him and trying to figure out. He's not a grad transfer, so they're trying to figure out, do we want a guy who can sit one, who has to sit first before he plays, or do we want to hold off? And we
may not have to sit.
Are taking place.
The NCAA is voting in May on that one-time transfer eligibility, which may also change the game there.
There's been some talk on that, and the question will be is whether or not it takes effect immediately. That's true. And that will impact some decisions as well. But at the same time, he's going to make a decision long before that vote comes up. So, and I imagine most kids will make decisions before that comes up. And will there be a new round of transfers if that vote comes up and they decide to make it immediate? That'll be interesting. But relative to Trevor, and Trevor Lakes is the kid, his recruiting has been interesting because it's all been on Zoom. Everything has been teleconference. And, I know some college coaches that I've talked to like that because they get a better feel with talking to a kid in that capacity than they do just talking to him online. And sometimes they get a better feel talking to a kid in that capacity before they bring him to campus. And in this case, they won't be able to bring kids to campus unless something changes quickly. But so that process is now removed. So if you're a kid that facilities matter, or you're a kid that, that wonders about the environment of the campus, I don't mean the culture of the community, but just the environment of what it looks, the aesthetics. If some of that stuff matters, which to me shouldn't, you're really going to be hindered by this process. And he's trying to adjust because he's a relationship guy. He likes to be in front of somebody. He likes to shake hands with somebody and make eye contact, and that stuff matters to him. So he's recalibrating his expectations, and he's getting through it. But some of the colleges struggle with it because, like, if I'm Indiana, I want as many kids on campus as I can get. It's a beautiful campus. This time of year, it's starting to get a little bit warmer. It's starting to look a little bit more like spring, and maybe even you can fake it to look like summer and get a feel for what it's like there, with the exception of, January, February, and maybe a little bit of December. But those types of schools that really rely on visits, they're going to have to adjust. And the kids that need to be there and see things before and make it more tangible, they're going to have to adjust. And the Zoom conversations have really been interesting. So I don't know what the overall impact will be, which I know was your question, but it's definitely going to force kids and coaches to recalibrate how they handle the process.
We'll certainly keep our eye on it. Make sure you follow Jim at JW Reamer on Twitter. And also he is the owner of Courtside Indiana and a contributor to the Hoosier.com for Rivals. Jim, I can't thank you enough, man. Look forward to doing it again. And we'll stay on top of the recruiting action throughout the summer.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it.
You betcha. Jim Reamer joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat with Coy O'Leary, talking some recruiting, which is always in fashion. It never seems to stop, Todd. That's one thing that, like I said, coronavirus can't even stop recruiting. It just doesn't stop. But it certainly has changed the game.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. It's the real unknown right now is going to be how much involvement and how much AAU can still be. How much of it can take place this summer, late this summer, if at all, and if there's none, the answer is going to be a lot bigger impact than even if they're able to just go. July, for people that don't know the schedule. I mean, April and May, there are recruiting periods where the college coaches can come for like a 2-week period in each month, and watch the big tournaments across the country, or any tournament for that matter, or any kid play. And then, basically they shut it down about, I will say, mid to late May, all the way through June. And there's really not a whole lot of coaching, scouting going on live in person. And then July, it opens back up again. So the April and May obviously is out the window, and July is kind of best case scenario. I know we had some people on last week that mentioned there's a possibility of extending the AAU and going July and August, which would probably be best case scenario for all of these players and all of these programs that you're talking about, and having an opportunity to see kids play. I think they could squeeze, almost all of the tournaments in that time period. I think they could squeeze most of those tournaments in, or the big tournaments for that matter, and give us an opportunity, and give, the Jim Reamers of the world an opportunity. He runs a great program in Indiana. He's very attached to the AAU scene. But, Indiana Elite, you mentioned Trey Galloway and Anthony Leal and all those guys playing for the Indiana Elite. I know Mike Fox does a great job with that program out of Indianapolis and Fishers. And, that thing is really spread throughout the whole state. And there's so many different teams involved in that. I mean, you think about the impact of this virus on that program alone is just incredible. So, but all of it factors into, it's still unknown. We don't have an answer or even a good guess. I mean, Dr. Fossey mentioning right now, he mentions this summer we're not going to have, spectator sports. And so when does that summer end? Like, when's the time frame for that?
I think the big thing is if we can get a test, get the testing that is like almost instantaneous. You test all these kids. Hey, he's test free. Come on in.
Yeah, I mean, and we all know if they come up with, a vaccine, I think everything will open up pretty darn quickly. Now there'll be some lines to get that shot, but
you bet they're right.
But I mean, that would obviously change the game, and we just, I don't know. I'm maybe a lot of people know more than I do, but I think just right now we just don't know what kind of time frame we're looking at for that stuff. I mean, you hear some people say it'll take a year to develop that. You hear some other people say, yes, but they're already along the process and they've been developing it for years. Who knows? But,
we'll certainly find out because we're not going anywhere until it happens, basically.
Yep. We're going to continue reporting on Todd's golf schedule.
Well, warming up would certainly be a good start to that.
It would not hurt my feelings. It would not hurt my feelings. I played 6 holes yesterday, and it was 43 degrees, and I think my fingers are paying the price for it today. I got some arthritis going today.
Yeah, I don't. Tim texted, how many spots does Nebraska have? Because you mentioned, Jim Ream mentioned a kid going to Nebraska because they picked up a lot. Your boy Fred's been busy, man.
Well, you remember last year they had 14 new faces on their in their program. So every kid on their team last year, except for one, was a new scholarship player, and a lot of them were grad transfers. I mean, a lot of kids already left. I mean, heck, they had 2 kids leave the program, and they had some kids that were grad transfers that graduated. So they've got tons of scholarships. Believe me, they're not going to be hurting for anybody that's got a lot of talent, and especially the kid they were just talking about. I mean, he's 2 years down the road. He's got to sit out a year. So
I don't know if he's being facetious. He said they signed 5 transfers today. I can't. Maybe that's being a little facetious.
Well, in the news, it seems like they do that all the time. I mean, it seems like they're doing that a bunch. I get his point, but.
We'll have to get Fred on here sometime, see what he's doing this summer. See if he's recovered from his flu. Ha ha.
He was blamed for
He started all this.
He started the whole thing nationally, apparently. That was the report.
God. Think about that now. I'm like, people were going to kill him, man. I mean, they were so mad when they found out he was sick and went there. It was kind of, a little funny now. Maybe it's not funny. I think it's a little funny. But
yeah, the irresponsible article Tom Brew put out on that thing the night of and I know I'm not here to bash Tom Brew. I know you're not either, but that was just Fred's a friend of mine, and that was an irresponsible reporting that Tom Brew put out on him having a possible coronavirus the night they're canceling the NBA and the Big Ten tournament and all that. That was irresponsible.
Well, hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to Fred at one point, see how his summer's going. Obviously, it's going pretty good right now because his recruiting is doing well. But, man, it has been another great one on the program today. We're so happy to have had Cam Cameron, one of my favorite segments I think we've ever done. I mean, that thing touched on everything. We talked about Bob Knight. We talked about Antoine Randall L., Phillip Rivers, Jim Harbaugh. I can't – and that's probably just half of it.
He just set the expectation level for Phillip Rivers outside of the world. He just made him a combination of Larry Bird and Peyton Manning. I mean, boy, my expectations just went way up for the Colts.
I can't wait to see that quote out there today. Because if it's not out there, I'm gonna put it out there.
I mean, if you just put Larry Bird plus Peyton Manning equals, I don't think Phillip Rivers would have been the answer to that equation.
You could have put down 100 names underneath of what name is going to go in there, and that is not the one I would have picked.
And if you did it backwards and you put equals Phillip Rivers and then you had the 2 pluses, I would not have filled in.
Would not have been a good Jeopardy.
Manning. No,
would not have been a good Jeopardy question for anybody. Speaking of Jeopardy, or the dude on what's
that still
kid's
winning?
name? He's in the championship round, I think. Make sure you're watching Jeopardy. That kid from IU. I don't have it pulled up. His name
is that tape delayed or are those podiums 6 feet apart?
You know what? That's a good question, man. I didn't.
It's taped. It's taped as an outline.
It is taped. Oh yeah, it's definitely taped. But even if it's taped, it's not 2 months.
I mean, it could have been taped. Yeah, it could have taped a long time ago.
Because some of those shows like that, they'll tape in 1 week. They'll sit there and do show after show after show in 1 week, and they're done for the year. It's crazy.
Good gig.
You're daggone right it is. Man, it's been a great one today. Cam Cameron, cannot thank him enough. That was incredible. Could have gone on with that all day. Jim Reamer joined us, talking about some recruiting as well, but lots of other stuff to talk about that we had on here. Looking forward to doing it again tomorrow. Matt Taylor is going to join us for sure. Let's see who else we can get on here. I know they're doing a fundraiser at Franklin College that he's helping with, so we'll talk about that. But, man, not a lot that we can get out and do today because it's going to rain, but I hope you stay safe and you continue to stay safe. Order from Yogi's or Bubba's 33 or wherever. If you're in Evansville, order out, just chill out and relax on the day, I guess, right, Todd?
Yes, sir. Nothing else to do. Get some chili. It's cold outside.
That sounds good. I wish I had the stuff. I'd make it. But that's going to wrap it up until tomorrow. We appreciate everybody joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. We come to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com for complete coverage on the Indiana Hoosiers. Until tomorrow, for Jake, Todd, I am Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.